So you've got a game idea and you're hyped. You open Unity, drop in a cube, give it physics, and suddenly you're knee-deep in making a coffee cup physics system before you even know your own core gameplay loop. Yeah, I've been there. And here's the thing, you are in this situation because you missed the most important phase entirely. I have a feeling there's this general idea that pre-production is paperwork, but it's not. It's the difference between a project that ships and one that rots in your hard drive for 5 years. It's avoiding that feeling of being lost midway during development, of having to add new features just to band-aid something that doesn't make sense in your head due to the direction it took. And of course, it's avoiding the what if and it would be cool if moments that just add and add to your dev time cycle until you are 4 years in development and thinking of dinosaur genetics and how they multiply. So let's talk about how to do pre-production the right way, step by step, using my own roguelite barista simulator as the example, because I wanted to do it properly this time. By the way, I'm developing a new game, and I aim to complete it within 6 months. Can't wait to see how that's not going to happen. So let's get serious. What is pre-production? Officially, it's the phase where you decide what you're actually making before you commit months or years to building it. But that sounds like the description on a tax form. Let's try again. If game development is building a house, production is the part that involves actually building it with your hammers, sawdust, and tools, while pre-production is the architectural blueprint. It's the part where you decide that no, the bathroom probably shouldn't be in the middle of the kitchen, and yes, the house absolutely needs a roof. These seem like obvious things, but you'd be amazed at how many game projects end up as a beautifully rendered, roofless kitchen bathroom. Mine included. I have a whole graveyard of project files named Final V3 use this one to prove it. The biggest lie we tell ourselves as developers is that pre-production is just boring paperwork that stifles creativity. It's the opposite. It's creating a compass. A compass doesn't tell you which cool caves to explore or which scenic routes to take, but it always points north. It ensures that all your creative detours are still headed in the right general direction. It's the framework that gives you the freedom to be creative without getting hopelessly lost. It's the point where a cool idea stops being that thing you tell your friends in Discord and starts becoming an actual plan. The goal here is to find clear, simple answers to the 3 questions that are the load-bearing walls of your entire project. First, what is the game? What is its core identity? Can you explain it to someone in an elevator before they start staring at their phone? Second, who is it for? Are you making this for hardcore strategy fans, cozy life sim players, or just your cat? Knowing your audience is knowing your destination. And third, what does finished look like? This is the big one. This is about defining the finish line before the race starts, so you don't just keep running until you collapse from exhaustion 4 years later. Answering these 3 questions honestly is the difference between a game that ships and a game that becomes a permanent guilt-inducing icon on your desktop. So, let's grab our metaphorical pencils and start drawing that blueprint, beginning with the most important line of all. Before you even think about opening your game engine, you need to pin down your idea in 1 sentence. Not a paragraph, not a law bible, just 1 sentence. If you can't explain your game to another human being without them squinting and saying, "So is it like Skyrim but with raccoons?" then it's not ready. Your concept is the North Star. It's what you'll check against every time you get tempted to add jetpacks, fishing, or a romance system with 14 branching dialogue trees. If those things don't align with your 1-sentence concept, they're out. I call this the clarity test. A good 1-sentence pitch usually contains the genre, the core action, and the unique hook. Let's put my barista game under the microscope. A first-person roguelite coffee-making simulator where you try to survive as much as you can while upgrading your equipment after each run. Let's break that down. This immediately establishes the genre, perspective, and core subject matter. It's a blend, the deep mechanics of a simulator with the punishing, replayable loop of a roguelite. This is the core goal. Notice the verb isn't make coffee, it's survive. Coffee making is the how, but survival is the why. This frames the game as an intense endurance challenge. This is the core loop. It's the classic, addictive roguelite promise. Die, get stronger, dive back in, and die a little bit later next time. Once that sentence feels rock solid, you expand it into a 1-page concept sheet. Again, this isn't a massive document, it's the DNA of your project, defined by a few key pillars, using your pitch as the guide. Roguelite simulator. This blend tells me the game is about mastery through repetition. Players will fail, but each failure will teach them something about the simulation systems, and the roguelite structure will reward them with upgrades to make the next attempt more successful. Perspective? First person, a crucial choice for the game. You're not managing a cafe from above, you are in it. The chaos is in your face. The pressure is on you. It's about immersion and immediacy, making every fumbled coffee cup feel personal. Tone, cozy but high energy. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Cozy and the phrase survive as much as you can sound like they belong in two completely different games. And that's exactly why they're in the same one. This contrast is the entire point. The cozy part is all in the aesthetic. I somehow envisioned a safe place between runs and the chaos. The high energy is in the mechanics. That's the relentless pace of orders coming in, the frantic dance between the grinder and the milk steamer, the pure adrenaline of trying to deliver the coffee on time, because if not, it's game over. Player fantasy. This is the big one. Try to start this sentence with I am or I'm in. Let's give it a try. I'm in the middle of organized chaos, I'm improving my skills and creating a system with each attempt, and I want to see how far I can last this time. The player fantasy is about achieving a flow state, optimizing every movement, and feeling like a genius for lasting 30 seconds longer than their previous run. Key hook. Physical, hands-on coffee making plus roguelite upgrade system that reshapes your cafe place between runs. Put this one-pager together, print it out, tape it to your monitor. This is your North Star. When you're 3 months into development and you suddenly think, what if I added a cute pet that wanders around the cafe? You look at this sheet. Does a cute, unpredictable animal serve the fantasy of being a high-skill survivor in a tense but cozy environment? No, it gets in the way. The idea goes in the absolutely not pile. And you've just protected the core of your game. Notice we haven't mentioned a single specific upgrade, customer type, or coffee recipe. This is all about the vision. Because a game with a clear vision and simple assets will always be better than a game with gorgeous assets and no idea what it wants to be. Everything else comes later. Now that we have our North Star, it's time to look at what other stars are in our sky. You are not making your game in a vacuum. Every game you release is entering a conversation with every other game your players have ever played. Your job in this step is to understand that conversation so you can add something new and interesting to it, instead of just repeating what's already been said. This is market research, and it's the most important thing you can do to avoid building a game that nobody wants to play. The goal is to deconstruct what works, what doesn't, and most importantly, why. I like to break this research down into 3 categories. First, look at your direct competitors. These are the games that a Steam algorithm would show right next to yours. For my game, I'm booting up games like Barista Simulator, Espresso Tycoon, and other cafe management sims for inspiration on the barista part, and games like PlateUp and Coffee Caravan for the roguelite elements. As you play, you're an analyst, not just a player. You're looking for a few specific things. First, you need to understand the established rules. Pinpoint what players expect from a coffee game and get a feel for the genre's typical flow. Then, zoom in on the moment-to-moment gameplay. Notice if it's all about clicking menus or if it's about physically moving around a space. Finally, and this is the most important part, you have to find the friction. Go read the negative Steam reviews. This is where you'll see the real story. Players complaining that the UI is clunky, the progression is too slow, or the game just gets boring. Every negative review for a competitor is a massive opportunity for your game to do better. Second, look for mechanical inspirations. These are games from completely different genres that do one specific thing you want to do, and they do it perfectly. This is where you can get really creative. For my project, I studied PlateUp. I played this relentlessly to understand its roguelite structure. The question wasn't how do they cook food, it was how do they make a single session feel meaningful. I analysed how every run ends with a clear choice for a permanent upgrade. It's a masterclass in making failure feel productive. My core loop of survive a shift, then buy one powerful upgrade is taken directly from deconstructing PlateUp's pacing. Then I played Power Wash Simulator. This game has nothing to do with coffee, but it is the absolute king of satisfying, tactile first-person tasks. I studied it to answer what makes a simple, repetitive job feel so good. It's the visual feedback, the audio design of the spray, the ding of a completed section. That's what I needed to capture. The feedback when you perfectly steam milk or the sound of beans grinding shouldn't just be functional. It needs to be deeply, almost weirdly, satisfying. Third, find your tonal and aesthetic inspirations. How should your game feel? Again, look outside your genre. I want my game to be cozy but high energy. So I'm not just looking at other cozy games. I might look at the warm lighting and color palette of a game like A Short Hike for the cozy hub area between runs. But for the high energy part, I'm looking at the frantic UI feedback and sound design of Overcooked to understand how to create a sense of controlled panic. Your deliverable from this phase should be a simple document. Make a list of 5 to 10 reference games. For each one, write down 4 columns. Game name, what works, what doesn't work, and key takeaways for your specific game. This research isn't a one-time thing, but doing the bulk of it now gives you a library of proven ideas to draw from. It stops you from reinventing the wheel and helps you find the unique combination of mechanics and feel that will make your game stand out. Now that we know the landscape, we can draw our own path through it, and that starts with defining the absolute bedrock of your game, the core loop. Your core loop is the fundamental rhythm of your game. It's the series of actions the player will repeat. Not for minutes, but potentially for hundreds of hours. It has to be satisfying, compelling, and robust enough to support the entire game. A great core loop consists of 3 parts: an action, a reward, and a hook that makes the player want to do it all over again. If you can't draw your core loop as a simple circle on a napkin, it's too complicated. I'm going to try to create this for my game. Not in a circle, but in the document here as steps. My loop has 2 layers. First, there's the micro loop, the moment-to-moment gameplay. It starts with taking the customer orders. This is the challenge. A new problem is presented to the player. Then we make drinks physically. This is the action. It's the core skill test where the player grinds beans, brews espresso, and steams milk. This is where the power wash simulator influence comes in. It has to feel good. Finally, we serve and earn money. This is the immediate reward. You get positive feedback and a tangible resource, in this case, money. Of course, the reward can be anything that makes the player feel good. A perfectly valid reward is progress or a high score system, to name a few. This micro loop could be fun, but it's not enough to keep someone playing for 50 hours. It would get repetitive. That's where the second bigger loop comes in, the meta loop that provides the long-term hook. Starting off with the concept of upgrades. This is the hook. The money earned in the micro loop is spent here. You buy a better grinder that works faster, or a new espresso machine that can pull 2 shots at once. This step creates the most important question in the player's mind. Now that I'm stronger, how much further can I get on the next run? Then repeat, with escalating difficulty. The player dives back in, armed with their new gear. But now, the orders come in faster, they're more complex, and the pressure is higher. The player gets to test their new power against a greater challenge. It's very important to maintain the balance of challenge, regardless of how far a player progresses. If you make the player's life easier in one aspect, try to increase complexity in another area, but not in a way that's frustrating, but in a way that's constantly interesting and challenging for him. This complete circle is what creates the just one more run feeling. Every part feeds into the next. The action gives you a reward, and the reward gives you a strategic choice in the hook, which then empowers you for the next harder action. Here's a simple test for your own idea. It's called the verb test. Can you define your core loop with a handful of strong, compelling verbs? I think I'm going to go with serve, create, earn, upgrade. Everything you build from this point on is in service of this loop. The art style needs to make the loop feel satisfying. The UI needs to make the loop seamless and intuitive. And the story, if you have one, should punctuate the highs and lows of the loop. This engine is the foundation for everything. If the foundation is cracked, the whole house will fall down. Now that we have our engine designed, we have to be brutally honest about how many parts we can actually afford to build for it. And that brings us to the next step of choosing and defining your scope. All right, let's have a serious talk, because this step right here is the great filter. This is the rocky shoreline where countless game projects, full of passion and potential, crash and sink. This is where most developers fail to reach the finish line. Time is your most valuable and non-refundable resource. Scope is the process of deciding what is worthy of that time. The mistake we all make is thinking we can just list what's in and what's out. It's not that simple. Your brain is a treacherous machine that will try to convince you that every cool idea is essential. To fight this, you need a system. I call it the 3 lists method. The musts, the shoulds, and the coulds. First is your must-have list. This is your minimum viable product, or MVP. The MVP isn't a crappy, unfinished demo. It is the smallest possible version of your game that delivers on the core player fantasy. It is your core loop, and absolutely nothing more. Second is your should-have list. These are the features that add flavor, juice, and variety, but are not essential to the core loop. For example, I'm thinking of multiple drink types, random events like the morning rush hour, more customer types with unique behaviors, nicer animations, better particle effects, and more satisfying sound design. These are important for making the game feel polished, but if I'm 6 months in and hopelessly behind schedule, this is the list I start cutting from, guilt-free. Third, and most important, is your could-have list. This is your dream drawer. It's where you put all the amazing game-changing ideas that are also massive, scope-destroying black holes. For me, my dream drawer contains latte art, multiplayer, and full VR support. Write these 3 lists down, print them out. This document is a contract you sign with your future self, because future you is a sleep-deprived and stressed by a never-ending to-do list and being stuck on a hard bug. Don't let him procrastinate by adding extra stuff just because you got bored with something that felt fun initially. Give yourself a clear plan so it's hard to stray from it. Locking in your scope is about channeling your energy in the right direction. It has nothing to do with limiting your creativity. It's about focusing your creative energy on making a big or small, polished, and most importantly, finished game. Okay, our blueprint is drawn and we've built a strong fence around our scope with our must, should, and could lists. The temptation now is immense. You want to fire up the engine, import some assets, and start laying the real bricks. But hold on. Before we dive headfirst into the months-long marathon of full production, we need to perform the final pre-flight checks. This final step is a 4-part process that transforms your documents and lists into a concrete, validated, and actionable plan. First, you need to prove the fun by building a prototype. This is a quick and dirty, ugly as sin playground built with grey boxes and basic shapes. Your prototype is not the first version of your game. It's a disposable science experiment designed to answer one question: is this fun? If the answer is no, this is your chance to pivot or scrap the idea, saving yourself thousands of hours. Second, once you have something playable, even if it's ugly, it's time to test the vision. A game plan is worthless if you're the only person who thinks it's a good idea. You need to get your concept in front of your target audience immediately. Show them your prototype, your one-page design sheet, or even just your core pitch. Watch their faces, listen to their questions. This early feedback is the cheapest and most effective way to see if you're building a house someone actually wants to live in. Third, with your core loop validated, you plan the work by building a production roadmap. This is where you translate your must-have list into actual, schedulable tasks. Break the entire project down into major systems and milestones. This roadmap is your defense against feature creep and burnout. It tells you what to work on next, and, just as importantly, what not to work on. Finally, you document everything. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. All this work culminates in a living document, your game design document, or GDD. This becomes your project's single source of truth. Even if you're a solo dev, write it down. Your GDD should contain your locked-in concept, your core loop diagram, your final feature lists, art direction mood boards, and your production roadmap. When you're tired and lost 6 months from now, this document will be the compass you created when your mind was clear. It's the contract you made with yourself. These 4 actions, prove, test, plan, and document, are the final gates of pre-production. They transform your concept from a fragile idea into a robust, vetted, and actionable plan. You've stress-tested the fun, confirmed your audience, and built a roadmap. Now, and only now, are you ready to start production with confidence? If things get tricky, I have another video talking about the pitfalls of not finishing a game. These last parts we discussed are more expanded upon, so check it out if you wish. Similarly, if you're close to launching your Steam page, I have a video with a guide on how to do that, which should be a great starting point. Pre-production isn't the sexy part of game dev. You're not building epic bosses or animating explosions yet, but it's the part that saves you from burning out, losing money, or cancelling halfway through. So slow down, write it all out, test it small, and commit to a clear vision. Your future self and your players will thank you. And in my case, if all goes well, you'll be making your first perfect espresso in my game, sooner than you think. By the way, I have no idea what to name this game of mine. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. I'll appreciate it. I don't know if anyone is still listening, but if you're here, hey, how's it going today? If you want to check out the progress of the new game or just hang out and chat, you are most welcome to our Discord channel. Have a great one.